On everybody, special edition here of the Corner Man with yours truly, the Corner Man, Ryan the Mighty Quinn. A lot of buzz last couple weeks on uh, both welterweights calling out Colby Covington, the media talking about who Colby Covington is going to fight next, and I thought it'd be a good topic to discuss. We were on here, we were talking about Pereira versus Sean Strickland, and that came to fruition. So let's see if we could do that here as well. We could break it down one by one. Now, in order to go over, people need to understand too, just because your favorite fighter beats a high ranked opponent, it doesn't necessarily put them ahead of them. It doesn't necessarily give them a title shot. Um, the the UFC welterweight division's in a very interesting place where Kamaru Usman's kind of beaten everybody. He's beaten Colby twice, George fight twice, Leon Edwards, who he's fighting again for a rematch. He beat him already once. Now, we got to go through this. He beat Gilbert Burns. Chimaev's on his way up. We're going to get into that. So the division has to basically figure itself out to get to him. In order to get to him, all roads go through Colby Covington. There's no question about that. Now, it's also interesting because Colby lost to him twice. I think the UFC is going to make him sweat a little bit, make him win at least 3 in a row, convincingly, before he gets that next shot. Now, in the meantime, some other names have been thrown out there that we could also play around with. I want to get out of the way first. First off, being I know a lot of people want to see him versus Dustin Poirier. A lot of bad blood there. Obviously, the two want to get their pounded flesh. I don't necessarily think that fight makes sense for the rankings for both of them right now, other than they're going to get that grudge match, which, as we saw with him and George, it's not going to settle in that bout. um, Things have been said. We don't need to repeat them. And those two have a deep hatred for each other. That's going to be a lot of eye candy for the fans. I don't think that it does a whole lot for the rankings. Now, going back to what I was saying before when it comes to rankings, UFC rankings, MMA, boxing rankings, even wrestling, jiu-jitsu rankings. Now, think of rankings more like your place within your division. Think of it more like NFL rankings as opposed to NCAA rankings. Now, what do I mean by that? Like college football, you could play around with a lot of things to put your favorite 4 teams in the tournament. Who beat this hair? What's going to draw here? Everyone argues the Irish always get in because they're the Irish. I think the Irish are that good. Now, if in order for the NFL, like let's say like you're in the pros, and let's say a very bad team beats the number one team who's sitting all their guys to rest for the playoffs. Now that's not gonna like in like week 17 or 18 now. That's not going to put that very bad team in the playoffs. That very bad team is still 6, 7, 8 games back. This is kind of how rankings work in MMA, sometimes with a little nudge if you have draw power, as we've seen. So think of it more like that when just because a very good fighter beats another very good fighter 5 or 6 rankings ahead of him, he's not necessarily going to get a title shot, even if it is a knockout. He could have lost 2 or 3 before in a row. Obviously, if somebody gets hurt or if they get that push, it's a little different. You can play with that here. Now, there's no alternate teams for NFL. So keep that in mind when we're talking about these rankings and who's going to get the next title fight. Now, going back to what I said, we talked about Dustin. I don't think that fight necessarily makes sense right now, although it's great eye candy and it does push both fighters in one direction. The next one people have been talking about is Israel Adesanya. That's another fight I really don't think personally makes sense. I really think that I think that he's going in the direction to be welterweight world champion. I think that beating Adesanya, yes, it kind of catapults him, but like I said, he's in a position where the UFC is going to make him sweat a little bit. I think even beating Adesanya, if he can beat Adesanya, is not going to do that. Now, mechanically, I know he can. I've seen this guy train. I've seen him train, lift, take down, and ride out heavyweights. I know how strong he is. I know how durable he is. Yes, he could physically fight at the middleweight division. There's no question in my mind. He could definitely do that. Now, that being said, Adesanya is not the only middleweight there. Robert Whittaker might be a fun fight to watch. Robert Whittaker also fought at welterweight at one point. That might be a fun fight to watch. But again, things need to happen between both weight classes in order to make this come to fruition. All right, so let's get to it. Now we have the middleweight fiasco, the Poirier stuff. The next thing, I really think that this next couple of weeks is going to be very big for the welterweight division. We got 4 huge fighters, 2 huge fights coming up that are going to see where we head as far as rankings and matchmaking is concerned. We'll start right this weekend, UFC 273 with Chimaev and Gilbert Burns. Now, I think that is going to be big. I think it's I think that's going to set the pace. That's going to determine if next week's fight is between Bilal Muhammad and Vicente Luque, if that is a title contention fight or a top 2 or 3 contender fight. Um, I think that if Gilbert wins, then they're gonna wait to see. I think if Gilbert wins, I think that's a great fight for Colby Covington's next matchup. But I think that they're gonna wait and see if the fight the week after between Luque and Muhammad. I think they're gonna wait and see if somebody wins in impressive fashion, so to speak. I think that if a big knockout happens or submission very quick, I think that's going to catapult them into the 2 contendership. Now, I think that's if Gilbert wins. I think if Chimaev wins, if Chimaev right now, as of 5 minutes ago, is ranked 11th in the UFC, I think that, under-ranked, they might make him fight a couple of more ranked fighters beneath Colby before they pop him up and fight somebody in the top 2 or 3. But that fight, really, I think that's the biggest draw. I think that fight makes most sense if he wins this fight. Now, let's go in the next week. The next week is maybe it's no accident that these 2 weeks fighters are fighting back to back. They really need to figure some stuff out with the welterweight division. Next week is Bilal Muhammad versus Luque. That's a big fight. I think that that's a top contender fight only if they win in impressive fashion, being because Chimaev and Gilbert Burns are weak, and I think that's the tone going forward. Now, you could honestly say that the losers or the winner in dull fashion have a consolation fight to see who's going to be in that 4-5 ranking. I think that that's quite possible as well. We got to consider draw power when we have this round robin going on. Who's the draw power? Now, there's somebody who we forgot about. Well, I didn't forget about, but we didn't mention yet, and that's Leon Edwards. Now, Leon Edwards is about to fight for the title. It's already set in July. I think that fight, if we had to choose right now, that fight makes the most sense for Colby Covington and who's going to welterweight division, but he's fighting for the belt. So really, it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? And I think that in order for that fight to happen, the next time at the very best for Edwards Covington to happen would be probably the December card. Now, that's quite a layoff considering Colby fought in February. He likes to stay active. I know that. And he's going to need to stay active to get back in that title contention. He knows that as well. So I don't think the only reason why I think that fight doesn't make sense for Colby's next fight is because he has to wait it out. And I mean, if Leon wins this fight against Usman, that might be able to be the next Usman Covington rematch. But even then, I don't think that it makes sense. I think that they're going to play around or just give Usman a rematch, and then that would have that Leon Edwards fight set back even more. So that's even more all over the place. I'm getting way off topic here. My favorite fight to see, the fight that I want to see would be Colby Covington versus Khamzat Chimaev. I think that fight has the most draw. I think that fight is exciting to watch. I think that they both have that smash game, so to speak, both very strong, and I would love to see that. Now, Chimaev has his hands full at UFC 273 this weekend with Gilbert Burns. Very tough. I think he's underestimated going into this fight without question. So things can happen. I did say I think that fight's going to go the over. I kind of said that earlier because Burns is so tough. He's got such good jiu-jitsu to keep him safe. So Chimaev has his hands full, but that I think that we should see Colby Covington versus Chimaev, even though he's ranked lower. I mean, he's going to bounce up. Now, let's say that there's a layoff, somebody's hurt. We have honorable mention fights. There's still a fighter that we haven't mentioned, and that is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Now, he's lost his last 2, but he's still in the mix. He's not ranked number 7. He's not as high as the rest of those guys, minus Chimaev. That's still an exciting fight. People still want to see that. It's still a striker versus wrestler, and people still want to see what's going on. If he could strike and hit Colby. Colby he's got an unstoppable gas tank. And so does Thompson. Thompson's also a little bit bigger. He's very hard to gauge as far as his range. His footwork is phenomenal. Crap on karate a lot, but I've seen karate guys have the best range in MMA, believe it or not, besides boxing. And if you watch the fight, I remember when he fought George. Now, again, this is going back 5 years, 6 years now. George was hard. George having a hard time keeping that range. I think wrestlers would have a similar fashion by the way he moves, and he's so long and rangy. So he might give Colby some fits. So maybe that's a better matchup than it would be on paper. That could be a stay busy fight for both men. Beating Colby Covington would Stephen Thompson right back in the mix in the top 5. Obviously, Colby Covington would beat another top ranked opponent, inching him, clawing him closer to a title shot again. And that might make sense. So I don't know, guys. Why don't you let me know what you think? Let me know what we discussed. Let me know. Maybe we can revisit this in a couple weeks after these next 2 fights shake out, which are huge for the division. Big night of fights coming up at UFC 273, and then again the week after at UFC 51, Vegas 51. Really looking forward to it. We're gonna have a lot of good stuff coming on. We're gonna be starting to focus on Bellator a lot more. And check out for those picks. I think every Tuesday I'm going to do a over under and live line lookout picks video. So check it out. Forward to it. Keep tuning in, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. I always forget to say that. Talk to you later. Bye.